Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Samantha and today we're going to be discussing books. More specifically, I have 5 books that I want to recommend you guys. This video specifically is for, I say specifically again, this video is for intermediate classic readers. This is for people who have read most of the basic classics, who are looking for something a little bit more different or a little bit more challenging. I did make a video for classics for beginners and I will put those down below. The same with that video. This is not an extensive list. This is 5 classics that I've personally read that I would recommend to intermediate readers. I have not read every classic. I cannot recommend I can't give you an extensive list. So don't be too mean. That being said, if you have something that will fit into this realm, go ahead and comment it down below. Also make sure you subscribe so you can get more videos like this if this is something that you are interested in. I personally have just gotten back into reading classics, so I love all the videos like this. But yes, we're gonna dive right in. The first book that I'm gonna give to you guys is gonna be Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Okay, the reason that I would recommend this book, this is one that I feel like people do know and do recognize, that Frankenstein by Mary Shelley is definitely something that I would recommend. Now I'm gonna put it not on the beginner's list, but I'm gonna put it in the intermediate list because I think to understand this book to its full complexity, you have to be willing to do research and you have to be willing to understand the world in which this book was written. So Mary Shelley was a female author during her time, I think it was the 1800s. She was intrigued and interested in sciences but was unable to study them. So she was living in a time in society where we were branching off from just a religious-based culture in society and kind of opening and broadening our horizons to more science-based thinking. And Mary Shelley wrote this book during that time. So this is basically, if you do not know, a book about Dr. Frankenstein making a monster, making another almost human being, another sentient being. So we are discussing a lot about science and religion and culture and what happens when people play God. It's very intriguing, very interesting. But yeah, I think that this would fall under more of an intermediate reader because I would, like I said, challenge you to think, you would have to think more broadly to fully capture what this book is doing and what why Mary Shelley and Frankenstein is so significant to today's society. Highly recommend for intermediate readers. Make sure you read those author notes before and after and do your research. It's something that I find that intermediate classic readers are looking more towards. It's something that you're more practiced in. If you have read this before, I would suggest you also read it again. I know that a lot of people read this as required reading in school, and if you're new here, you know what I think about required reading, and that's that it ruins reading. So make sure you reread that if it's something that you haven't read in a very long time, or you haven't read yet. The next book is something that is a book that I don't think very many people know about, and so I'm excited to recommend it to you, and that is The Women in White by Wilkie Collins. This was written in the 1860s. It was published in the 1860s. This is kind of like the first big mystery thriller, like it's a Victorian mystery thriller, and it was incredibly intriguing. I read this in high school and I still think about it to today. I kind of put it on this list specifically because it is longer, which means that it can be kind of more intimidating. However, it's fairly fast-paced and there aren't any concepts in here that shouldn't be easy to grasp. I imagine some of the language in here, it has been a while since I've read this, so I can imagine, having been published in the 1860s, there might be some language in here that you have to be willing to look up or find other references towards. So I think so I would put it more in the intermediate reading category. I will go ahead and read you the synopsis because, like I said, it's been a while since I read this, and there are some classes that I feel like the synopsis does justice more than me just talking about it. So let's begin. One of the greatest mystery thrillers ever written, Wilkie Collins' The Women in White was a phenomenal bestseller in the 1860s, achieving even greater success than works by Dickens. The story begins with an eerie midnight encounter between artist Walter Hartwright and a ghostly woman dressed all in white who seems desperate to share a dark secret. The next day, Hartwright, engaged as a drawing master to the beautiful Laurie Fairley and her half-sister, tells his pupils about the strange events of the previous evening. Determined to learn all they can about the mysterious woman in white, the three soon find themselves drawn into a chilling vortex of crime, poison, kidnapping, and international intrigue. That was a mouthful, but yes, highly recommend. I do remember that there was a very beautiful, romantic love subplot in this book that I was intrigued by as a high schooler. This is one that I'm looking to reread in the near future, so if you would like a full in-depth discussion about this book, make sure you comment that down below as a recommendation for myself to reread. But yes, I think the thicker classics you're definitely going to see a couple more of those, just because they are more intimidating, and I feel like you gotta have to have like a little bit more patience, which comes with reading a lot of classics, or quite a few classics, before jumping into something that's this big. Speaking of long, the next book is Anna Karenina by Lao Tzu. I think I said that correctly that time. If I didn't, make sure you correct me. I've seen it pronounced several different ways, but Anna Karenina. So this is a 700-page book about a woman who has an extramarital affair and all the consequences that occur after that. This is in Russia during the revolution, so women in that time frame, in that era, did not have as many leniencies as they do now. So that's where we're kind of like, that's where Tolstoy is basing his discussion on this bout. I did put this in here once again because it is longer. Tolstoy is also known for being kind of rambly in the best of ways, trust me, in the best of ways, but he does tend to ramble on and try to ensure that the reader got his point. Another sort of aspect as to why I would put this in the intermediate reading section is that there are a lot of characters in here. It's not just Anna Karenina, and they do parallel each other, and it's important to understand how they parallel each other and why we're getting all these different perspectives. Like I said, Tolstoy does spell it out to you fairly well. He is rambly. He does want to make sure that you're getting his point. But yeah, I think this is still very, very accessible because the language isn't too old. It isn't too old. And the content in this book is also still fairly relevant to today. The discussions in this book are relevant to today. There's a lot of, he discusses a lot about classism as well as sexism and just like hypocriticalism. Hypocritical? Characters being hypocritical, people being hypocritical, humanity being hypocritical, and highly judgmental. But yes, this is another one I would recommend. It's also very beautiful. It is a book that you will fall into, I promise. Alright, the next two books I'm going to kind of lump together. I know I was going to give you 5 recommendations, but technically there are 5 books. I'm going to lump these two together because I think that they would do really well sequentially. The first one is going to be Carmella by Sheridan Le Fon. This is a book that inspired Dracula. And then I'm going to go ahead and recommend Dracula by Bram Stoker. So this one first, then this one. That was what I would recommend you do. I would put this book on there just because, like Dracula, actually, there are a lot of nuances that you kind of have to infer about, kind of think more broadly about. This is a wonderful story. This is like a sensual, very sapphic vampire story. I really love it. It's very reminiscent of like a older Anne Rice. But this is about a girl who falls sick and then has a friend who comes to visit and falls sick as well. Like I said, there's a lot of inferences here that you have to be able to grasp. It's all very subtly written. It's very sensual writing. It's very beautiful writing. It is shorter, so if you're looking for something a little bit shorter, Frankenstein and Carmella are definitely where you want to go to. It's also one that is less known. I feel like recently it's gotten a little bit of popularity, but as a vampire lover myself, I did not hear about this book until later on in my reading life, so here I am recommending it to you because it is worth putting on your shelf, especially if you like vampires like I do. Alright, the next one, Dracula by Bram Stoker. So this is also a very popular one, just like Frankenstein. I feel like we have seen plenty of adaptations of this book in several different ways. I have to say my favorite might be Hotel Transylvania, but That is what it is. I kid. I actually think that Netflix's animation for Dracula is my favorite. I don't know. We'll see. There's so many adaptations to this book, but I put it on here because this is a book that is in a very challenging format. So what you're getting are letters, you're getting diary entries, you're kind of having to piece it together, just like one of the characters who is reading this. You have to be able to look beyond what is being written. You have to be able to infer what is going on. There's also a lot of tricky language in this book. Like I said, you really have to read into it to understand what is going on. And I think that's something that comes with time when reading classics. It's something that you develop. And to fully understand this book, I do believe that's something that you need to do. It is one that I would recommend because of the general spookiness and just vampires. I'm just going to recommend vampires any chance I get. This is definitely a classic that I feel like you need to read. There's a lot of pop culture references that come from this, and in your reading experience, this is a good one to have under your belt to understand a lot of the other references in other books. All right. Oh, if you didn't know what Dracula's about, it's about a woman and her journalist husband who spend the night in a really creepy castle where Count Dracula is in Transylvania. Things happen. Alright, this is it's a fairly beautiful stack. I will have to say that. Okay, let me get together. So here's your 5 recommendations for intermediate classic readers. Like I said, it's not very extensive. If you have any recommendations, make sure you put them down below so for other viewers of this video, and I think I will be seeing you guys next time. Make sure to subscribe. There should be a Beginner's Classics Part 2 coming out. And also I do read a classic every month and kind of give you like an in-depth analysis from the viewpoint of someone who is not trained in reading literature, because I am not. Hence make sure you check out other people's recommendations and make sure you comment down below with your own recommendations. Judgment-free zone. You're allowed to put anything down there, I promise. If you put Winnie the Pooh down there, like I would argue that's probably a good one for intermediate classic readers too. You know, there's a lot of nuances in Winnie the Pooh we don't know. Anyways, I'm done rambling. Thank you for coming and checking out the video and checking out my channel. Love you guys lots. Make sure you comment, subscribe, and like, and I will see you guys next time.